Friends, it's ironic that yesterday was 1 week before we celebrate Thanksgiving, because it came early for me. This foundation exists, as Dr. Martin said, for a multitude of purposes, with our outreach being the arts. I had a guy contact me at my office the other day and he said, "Basil, I get it." I said, "What do you mean?" He says, "I get what you're doing." I was performing in Ness City, Kansas, and I was doing a polka. And a man with Alzheimer's disease who never spoke much in 3 years heard that polka and suddenly remembered his entire wedding down to the color of his cufflinks. He said, "I get it. I get what you're out to do in your outreach, and what you're going to do internally for Parkinson's patients is remarkable." I'm J. Basil Dannebaum, founder of the Emerald Foundation. The Emerald Ball was really the grand opening, if you will, of what we hope will be a movement. You always hear of starting things small, but research is showing that Parkinson's disease is sort of evolving faster, quite frankly, than medication can keep up. So when somebody tells a Parkinson's patient like me, start small, every second counts. I mean, this is, Michael J. Fox said it, this is a ticking time bomb, and we never know what tomorrow is going to bring. I appreciate research, but my day-to-day life was not pleasant. The message that every victory counts, that if you simply are able to get out of bed and move around and enjoy, take a walk, these in our world are victories. So the purpose of the Emerald Ball and the days leading up to it were to introduce what we hope will become a movement through the Emerald Foundation. And it's a twofold approach. First of all, the Emerald Foundation exists to promote Parkinson's disease. And we do that in a very unique way through the arts, because studies have shown, independent studies, that art therapy is good for Parkinson's patients. Not just Parkinson's patients, oddly enough. We've heard reports of a recent one came out where a university transformed a room to look like 1941 and bring these Alzheimer's patients and they start to remember. What we find is that, especially with diseases that affect the brain, that art really does provide a point of expression, a point of comfort, and that when patients with Parkinson's engage in the arts, it provides them with some, I guess, relief. I got to tell you, though, it started Thursday morning with us sort of getting to the hotel and preparing, because we had a lot of guests coming. And the moment that melted my heart was the fact that I'd never met Roy Roden, Chad Moyer, or Allison Smith in person. We've only ever just communicated by phone and Facebook. And when they got out of that vehicle, I had just happened to be arriving at the hotel at the same time, having run some errands, and here comes Roy Roden with his arms stretched. And we share this disease. And it felt, you knew something wonderful was going to take place, because family was coming together at that point. It just, there really aren't words to describe that kind of moment when you've talked to somebody about your disease, when you've shared your frustrations and asked, do you have these same things happen to you? But you've never seen them face to face. In that moment, when they're there, and moreover, they're there for a cause that you're trying to create, it's unspeakable joy. And that just continued when the hospitality room, people began to come in Thursday night, and here you'd see, Ron Newman and the Diamonds come in, Allison Smith and her father came in, and all these people that we've been communicating with, yet we've never met, all came in, and we shared dinner together and an evening. We just all talked, we laughed, we discussed at length what was going to take place through the weekend. I said it was ironic that it was a week before Thanksgiving because we truly came together as a family, and I was just so thankful that they were there with us. And they were ready to go, not certain, mind you, of what they're about to get into, but ready. Then, of course, Friday morning, several of them spoke to all these school children, and I remember that, you know, they were excited. They were ready to tell their story to those kids. And when they left those kids, they were showing me selfies on their phone and coming back and saying, this was dynamic. This was a fun experience. It was a new one for them to speak to that many kids. And I told them at lunch, I said, get ready because I'm not done with you yet. Friday afternoon, of course, we went to the Robbins Center and we heard from Larry Dreiling, who lost his uncle to this disease as a fine MC.
It's a real pleasure for me to join in this effort with Jay Bays, who has been a pal for quite a number of years. And I'm really honored about that. It's truly an honor. Thank you for this opportunity to share in this. My dear uncle, Alvin Dreiling, was a victim of Parkinson's as well, and so my life was touched by that, and we lost him last year, and I miss him. And so this is for you, Uncle Alvin.
Dr. Martin, who's lost several family members to this disease.
We are here to celebrate the life of those who have joined us and to bring attention to a disease that often people do not recognize its severity nor its implications. Most of my family has either died of cancer or Parkinson's. My husband's mother, my mother-in-law, died of Parkinson's. And while they lived a good long life, they were taken far too often by a disease that was very, very, very cruel.
You heard at that point the grim reality of this disease, the fact that we shake, we move, we have all these symptoms, but in the end we freeze, we stiffen, we have difficulty swallowing, we choke, we die. That was an important message to get out there because it's the very truth of how this disease ends. It's not pleasant. But for these college students to hear that, for them to hear these stories, there wasn't a dry eye in the house when Lisa Reeser, a school teacher of 17 years, to serve in the Kansas school system is something to say of a teacher, but to do it for 17 years as a Parkinson's patient, it's an absolute hero. And to hear her share her story, how she said, one of her lines I think was so dynamic, and I'm paraphrasing of course, but she said, through my disability, my students gained ability.
Would you please step forward, Jay Bays and President Martin? And let's present this first award, the Lisa Reeser Award for Outstanding Achievement, to Lisa Reeser.
I know how important it is to this foundation and to Basil to bring Parkinson's awareness to as many people as possible and to help those people with this disease to cope with it in the best way possible. I too, as a classroom teacher, found it important to incorporate into my lesson plans ways for the students to experience a disability in everyday life. I did this by not only bringing items like wheelchairs, crutches and latex gloves for covering a hand and to spend a day feeling disabled, but also by everyday coping with the disease that crippled me, caused speaking issues, and damaged my writing abilities. To my surprise, I became a better teacher, and my students became better students. They compassionately found the abilities in my disability.
That blew me away. And you know, when Allison Smith just stopped and she said, "I just want to absorb this moment," that young woman had been through cancer, Parkinson's disease, a host of issues, and that one special moment in Hays, Kansas, where we handed her an award, thanking her for being one of our heroes, she just wanted to absorb that moment. Roy Roden had a story to tell, and his story is remarkable. A patient barely able to walk, going through a procedure and riding 4,500 miles across the United States. It's a real hero.
After about 4 months following my DBS, my wife and I, along with our dogs, Samantha and Oliver, endeavored a 5,000-mile bicycle trip from Seattle to Miami to bring an awareness and to raise funds for clinical research for Parkinson's disease. The ride, however, became so much more. I tried to ensure everybody that my DBS had addressed most of my motor function issues, and although I'd never ridden a bike more than 20 miles in my whole life, I'd pace myself, and then I knew what I was doing. I was lying through my teeth. In the 4 months it took us to get home to Miami, we rode through hailstorms, sandstorms, freezing weather, gale force winds, and dangerous mountain terrain, fighting with speeding logging trucks in the fog, trying to share the same old winding roads. But we also had the chance to see the whales off the California coast, pick apples off a tree for the very first time in my life in Washington. I saw sea lions and seals off the coast of California for the very first time in my life. Gotta say, it was the coolest, most physically demanding and excruciating thing I've ever done, and I wouldn't trade it for $1 million. You see, I choose to be a victor, not a victim. And I'm telling you these things not to impress you, but to impress upon you to cherish each and every moment on this earth.
And then, of course, we couldn't have Orville Budd Eaton with us in person because he's passed. But his legacy lives on. And his granddaughter shared that legacy with us. Emotional as well. She told me, she said, "I did not expect that. I didn't expect to get so teared up." And she said, "But you made me think of so many memories of my grandpa." Her mother said at the reception afterwards, "I just started thinking of all these different things with Dad, and I remembered his fight with Parkinson's disease, and it just brought back so much." And of course, the Herndon Clinic provides a valuable service to Parkinson's disease patients that so many don't know exist. Our voices fade, and we need that therapy. That clinic is first class, and they provide a dynamic service. What a great opportunity that was to showcase them.
As speech-language pathologists, we don't get into this profession for money. Most of us don't end up with millions, which is why we're always begging for money. But we do get into this profession because we want to help people. And it's kind of selfish. I will actually admit that. Nothing makes you feel better than helping people tell their stories.
And then the evening, of course, was a chance for, I guess you'd say the afternoon was a chance for the Parkinson's patients to tell their story to Hays, whereas the evening session was the chance for Hays to tell its story to the Parkinson's patients, which I really loved. The DHDC did a fantastic job of bringing in German food. We had some festive German music. Of course, Leo and Viola Dortzweiler, the first family of German heritage, dancing for us. When I came here at Thomas More Prep to come to high school, this town took me in as family. When I came back, this town took me in as family. And I remembered that very special feeling that Hays gave me, that sense of welcome, that sense of this is what family does. I knew that this was where we had to have this event. And they did say, you'll never pull it off in Hays. It has to be Kansas City. It has to be Wichita. You'll never get this done in Hays. The Volga German people are firm-minded people who said, "You want to bet? We're going to get this done in Hays, and we're going to get it done well." These guests were blown away to be there that night among people who cared. Parkinson's patients from Hays, regular business folk from the community who supported them, they felt welcome. They felt like family. and they got to celebrate with a totally different crew than usual. A lot of times I hear, I don't want to necessarily go to the support groups. They say they're so important, why don't you want to go? Because all we do is talk about our problems, and it's depressing, and I get sad when I leave there. What I heard through this whole event, this whole sequence of events, was we taught about Parkinson's. We told the story about Parkinson's, but we also recognized our heroes, and we weren't a disease. We weren't a patient. We were a person being upheld and supported by a family. It was, for me and for so many Parkinson's patients who attended, a special Thanksgiving Christmas gift, because we were surrounded by people who wanted to hear our story, who wanted to know more about our disease, who want to help with that, but moreover who say, we got your back. It wasn't for me about money or the glitz or the glamour. It was about having people see that this disease, it doesn't know age, it doesn't know gender. It's terrible. And I live with it every day. And I hate it. Sometimes I pray to have it taken away, but other times I recognize that perhaps it's that particular struggle that I'm meant to carry doesn't make it any easier. What fills you with those emerald moments, as I call them, are events like the ball, where people gather around you and they say, we know a little bit more about this now. We got your back. It warms your soul. It really does. And I think that's what the weekend was all about. It truly warmed my soul.
Please help us. Help us take this mission further. Every day counts. Every moment is precious. And as you know, with this disease advancing as fast as it is, we don't simply accept freezing up, choking up, and calling it quits. My fellow Parkinson's disease patients and I are fighters, but we need you to help us along the way. With that, I thank you. I ask that God bless each and every one of you, and to all those who suffer, we're in this together. Thank you.